I love that line, we're more than 5. We're more than 5. We're more than 5 years old, but that doesn't stop us sometimes from acting like a 5-year-old, right? It doesn't stop us sometimes from having the fears of a 5-year-old, and it doesn't. Hopefully, it doesn't stop us from having the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old and the playfulness of the 5-year-old and imagination of a 5-year-old. But we want to be able to channel our imagination with conscious intention, right? So that's what we learn as grown-ups. And just a side note, I think that we should be teaching our children that as well. So thank you, Emily. I loved it. Loved it. Beautiful song. So all month long, we're talking about ensuring the stewardship of our planet, right? And with the core value, the core intention of love. Like, how do we do this through the presence of love and with the presence of love? And so we began the month with an experience of that. We did a meditation, a guided meditation, and really felt that experience of the sacredness of the earth and all that's on it, including us, but not just us. You know, the plants, the animals, the trees, everything, and recognizing our reciprocal nature with that we need it and it needs us. And so we're waking up to that fact, I think, and that's part of our evolution. And then last week I talked about the self-giving nature of life, that, you know, everything we see has come into form by means of creation, and we can take the hypothesis that it did so through love, as love, by love, for love, to express love. And if we take that hypothesis, then what does it mean? What's it mean? And then I might say, how come we have days and weeks and sometimes longer than that where everything's not hunky-dory? It isn't how we want it to be. We don't feel loved. We don't feel loving. We don't feel lovable. We don't recognize the love in the world. Why? Why then does that happen, you know? And so I want to take a look at that this morning. Because we should be living in the Garden of Eden, right? All the time, in paradise, and feel that way. But we don't. So I'm suggesting this morning that one reason why we don't is because of our fears. Because of our fears. And there can be fears from a 5-year-old, you know, not hanging your arm over the side of the bed. Is that only me? Or making sure that the closet doors are shut so the boogeyman doesn't come out of the closet and nothing that's under the bed doesn't come up and get your fingers hanging out. Yeah. No, maybe me? Other people? Okay. All right. I'm not alone. All right. Good. I was going to need to go see my therapist. So fear blocks our flow. Fear blocks our flow. It blocks that flow. It blocks the flow. It blocks love. Right? There's so many ways, and it comes from this mental construct that is limiting, that limits all those infinite possibilities that are always available to us. When we have fear, that's what happens. It's like the doors close. But there's always something, and I like to say something with a capital S, right? There's always something that has no fear within us. There's always something that has never been limited, never been diseased, never been fearful in any way. That love, that bliss, that thing inside of us, which is spirit, God, the spark, the urge, whatever you choose to call it, that energy, that presence. So, we have the power to convert our fear into faith. We have the power to turn loss into gain, to make a failure a success. And really, what does it require? It requires our perception to shift. That's what it requires. Not really like a great big giant thing. A shift in perspective can really do that. We know our thoughts are creative. I think everybody in this room knows that your thoughts are creative. And so we want to be in a place where we are regularly, constantly, consistently uncovering the truth, shedding those fears, so we get to that where that which is inherent in us is really present for us. This is a foundational science of mind premise that we work with. And the challenge that we have is really the awareness piece. That's the challenge, is to remember, to be aware, to realize at any given moment what's driving us. Who's driving the bus, right? Who's on first? All those things, those little phrases that we have. And maybe we want to pick one of those phrases to remind ourselves, what are you doing? You're always creating. Honestly, that's why my tattoo is here. That's why I put the Science of Mind symbol on my arm where I can see it, right-handed. I'm always seeing I'm creating. Oh, look, anywhere my hand goes. What are you creating? What are you bringing into form? Because I'm always creating, right? And so we want to be in a place. It's uber important that we do that. And that's why I designed our services so that the first Sunday of every month we have the meditative service. Because it's really important that if you don't already have a meditation practice, that you create one for yourself, that we really spend that time. And we've just completed, have we completed, Brenda? Our first round, so Brenda was the last one. So we just completed our round of group meditations. We had 4 or 5 different groups meeting around town, Bradenton and in Sarasota, and we'll start that up when season really looks like it's kicking in, and so that we have an opportunity for people to practice meditation and learn about meditation. Oh, yeah, you guys kept on. You decided to keep on. I love that. They were so loving being in that silence together. I love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. So before we can change anything, before we can change our thoughts to change our life, we have to know what they are. So that meditation comes first. It's super important. So instead, and this is what happens. It ultimately comes down to, instead of us having this like wild IMAX 3D kind of movie ride through life, that is harrowing and, explosive and loud and combative and all the doom and gloom that we can imagine, right? I mean, somebody in Hollywood imagines that stuff and puts it out there on the screen, but oftentimes we are imagining it too in our day-to-day lives. Like, we can just really blow things super out of proportion. And so instead of doing that, if we're going to make crap up, why don't we make up good stuff? Why don't we make up the fairy tales? Right? Yeah, like let's make up Disney. Even Disney's got more violence in it than it needs to have, But really, if we're making it up, and that's what we're doing, that's what we do every single day, we're making it up. So, this morning I just really want to talk about that this is Science Mind 101, and current science or psychology supports this, and that there's some tricks. There's some little tricks that we can learn to remind ourselves of where we want to be. Because again, those fears that we have, they distort our perception. They distort how things really are. And so we're going through our lives distorted, right? And we have lots of help with that. Remember when Janice Stanfield was here and she talked about that she was trained as a reporter. And so she was taught how to sensationalize, how to find those words that are going to put you in a sense of fear when you're hearing the news. It's designed that way. And we need to be smart and understand that, right? And so faith, when we can shift our perspective from the place of fear to the place of faith, a whole world opens up for us. That's where then your dreams can be possibilities. Then that's where we want to be. And we want to be in a place that it's so consistent that we're in an embodiment of it, where we're in an embodiment of love and reverence, whether it's for the earth or for our own selves and all the people around us. And that's how we get to transcend those fears. So this living the science of mind thing, It's easier to talk about it than it is to do it, right? We get that. And we say it's simple because it's really simple. It's not complicated. But I understand it's not easy. So if we were going to play a game of truth or dare right now, and we were going to get real with each other, how many of us spend a lot of time in that fearful place? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. But think about it. Think about it. It can be really subtle, too, how it comes up. It can just show up as mere assumptions. We make assumptions about what somebody's thinking about us. Oh, well, so-and-so didn't call me like they said they were going to call me this week on Wednesday morning. They're probably mad at me. I probably made them angry. I pissed them off the other day, and then we can get this big old story. Bobby says, when are you writing the novel? We can really create a scenario that has nothing to do with reality. So maybe we want to go to a place of inquiry, from a place of stillness to a place of inquiry, right? My first husband used to say I would go right from zero to fly off the handle, right? I don't do it anymore. I second husband? No, I really don't do it anymore. And it's a work in progress, and we all are that. And I will never stand up here and tell you I got it all put together. But I will tell you that I don't go to that fearful place nearly as much as I used to. Nowhere near what I used to do. So I know it's a work in progress, and I know we can improve. And in our Declaration of Principles, we have the statement, we believe the ultimate goal of life to be the complete emancipation from all discord. Complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that goal is sure to be attained by all. And so emancipation, liberation, freedom, what do we need freedom from? What do we need liberation from? But ourselves, but those ridiculous imaginings that we allow to play and replay and play and replay in our minds. So this is a beautiful statement that Ernest Holmes made about fear and faith. He says that they're identical. Fear and faith are identical. They're identical in the energy used, that the one energy is the same as the other energy. But there's one final energy in the universe, and that final energy is the energy of thought. So fear is the positive acceptance that you shall experience that which you don't like. Think about it, right? Fear is the positive acceptance that you're going to experience what you don't want, what you don't like. That's what fear is. Faith, conversely, is a positive acceptance that you will experience that which you want to experience, that which you like, that which you love, that which you desire. Right? He says the only difference is the direction. Do you agree with that? Yeah, right? So there's this new phrase in psychology coined by Albert Ellis called awfulizing. Awfulizing. Have you heard that? Awfulizing, right? It's a funny word to say, awfulizing. But it is about that erratic, dramatic thought patterns that we will take on, a tendency to over-dramatize, overestimate, potential negative consequences, a fear of what tomorrow may bring. Maybe you don't do it yourself, but when you talk to somebody and they're like, oh, what? But it could rain tomorrow, or we could have, it could this. We could. My mom gets so upset that I don't regularly watch the news. And I say, Mom, if there's a Holocaust or a hurricane, you're going to pick up the phone and call me. I'm going to find out what I need to know, right? So, yeah. It's exaggerating, and it's always self-defeating. Can you feel that? You can feel that, right? That awfulizing. when we do that. And so, it's commonplace for us, or else there wouldn't be a new term for it. And psychology wouldn't be studying it, right? And so the key thing to know about awfulizing is that it's very creative. It is very creative, especially because we put all that emotion into it. We got all the juice wrapped up around it, It's really, when you think about the things that you want, the things that you love, the things that you want to create in your life, feel that feeling? Now think about the things that you're afraid of, the things that you're so worried about, that you're fearful of. Feel the energy there? Some of us have way more energy around those fears. Not only is it not healthy for us physically, it's not healthy for any of us if you're doing it, right? Because we're all like Pigpen. That stuff that we're thinking about is, it's out there rolling off of us, touching everybody else, touching the planet. It's just rolling off of us. Like, who I'm talking about, Pigpen and Charlie Brown? He's got all that stuff rolling off of him. So, it stops us. Fear stops us. It stops us it keeps us from missing great opportunities, from realizing our full potential. It keeps us from having intimate connections with other people, right? From showing each other who we really are. Keeps us from showing up authentically when we walk around with fears. And usually it's not rational, and we need to confront those fears. I'm going to implore you today to take a look at the fears that you have, to look at them in the daylight, right? Take a look at them. Were they true whenever? Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But our fears are false evidence appearing real. I can't spell. F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. My dear beloved Erwin Wolfson used to say that one. So this is really important for us to figure out what's driving us and how we can turn them around. And like I said a minute ago, it's not so much of an issue for me in my life as it used to be. And I will tell you that one of the reasons why is because I've worked on it for a very long time. Very long time. Another reason why is because I walked on fire. Has anybody in here done it? Have you done a fire walk? Yeah. Was it life-changing? Yeah. In that way that you knew, I can do things I thought I couldn't do? Because it's a perception, isn't it? And you have to get rid of that perception that you're going to be burned in order to do it. Just like we have to get rid of a perception that we're separate. We have to get rid of the perception that we're all alone out here floundering in the world, because we're not. The creative power, all that is right here that we draw upon with every breath. Right? So, beautiful experience walking on fire. And I was led by Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse in Asheville, North Carolina, at the CSL in Asheville. And he said, the way that you do life is the way that you'll do the fire. And I knew then that I would walk the fire. He said, you don't make up your mind until you're in front of it. And then you're called. It's not like you're making up your mind anyway. You're called, right, Laszlo? You're called to do it. So, but I knew before we got back out there and saw those embers that were now probably about, 1,200 degrees, I knew I would do it, because when he said the way you do life is the way you'll do the fire, because I really don't hold back much anymore. And that is, it's such a liberating place to be in. And so, no, I didn't get burned. I didn't get burned at all. You know, an interesting thing that they told us, don't look at your feet after you do it. Don't look at your feet. And he told stories about people who looked at their feet and about the blisters that came up when they looked at their feet. I didn't look at my feet. I washed my feet the next morning, put my shoes on, and I looked at my feet later that second day. There was no blemishes at all on my feet. There was nothing. So I missed a lot of opportunities when I was younger. And that's why I went back to college at 47 and got my master's degree at, 56, started this at 58, right? So I kind of, was a little slow moving, right? Missed a few opportunities. But I learned a lot. And I still am. A student of mine taught me something that I later researched, and they actually call it thought stopping. She literally, when the fears start coming up, she says, stop. She just says stop to herself. Stop. And it works for her. And she's been doing it for a couple years. And it works for her. So I looked it up, and it is called thought stopping. And it's a really great thing to do. Another really great thing to do is have a replacement thought. So some of the research that I found says also a really great thing to do is have a picture. Now, that's Science Wine 201 maybe, right? Mental equivalent, right? We want to have an image because those images, think of the IMAX screen, woo, they're really believable. And so when we have that drama playing, for us, in front of us, we need to have something else to take its place. So again, Ernest Holmes calls it a mental equivalent. And I've been doing that since, maybe a year before we started this, which we're just now, about 6 months. So a year before we started this, I'm doing the mental equivalent on a vibrant, excited, spiritual community. And if we have 67 people has been our average since we started. If we have 67 people in this room, it feels like 140 to me, or 150. It feels that way. The energy's always big in here. And I think that's a really interesting thing, but I've been visualizing vibrancy, excitement, aliveness, passion. So that's a really great thing to do, is to have a word, a phrase, an affirmation that's going to change the thought, and then have a picture that you have with it that's going to change your thought. And I personally believe that when it's really a challenging one, to use a denial step. I know some of my students don't agree with me, but it helps me to convince myself. So, for example, I am powerful and connected. But if I'm feeling like somebody's not listening to me or paying attention to me, and I'm feeling puny, and I'm not feeling powerful, and I'm not feeling connected to them, then I might say, despite the fact that I've not been able to have a conversation with Laszlo because we've been trying to have a conversation for weeks, right? Despite that, I know I'm connected. I know I'm powerful, and I know I'm connected to Laszlo, right? So, but if you keep saying that denial step until you really go, oh yeah, I get it, I remember. To me, that's helpful. That's really helpful. So there's a few little tips. Because I think it's so valuable for us to be able to turn from that fear in an instant to that place of faith. That's how we begin to heal ourselves. That's how we begin to improve our lives, improve the lives of the people around us, and yes, heal the planet. So, there's help for you. If this feels like, God, I'm so stuck in it, we have practitioners. I have a Fear to Faith worksheet. That's a really powerful thing. I can spend a little time, sit with you, and we can do the worksheet. But so there's help. Just know there's practitioners. There's other tools besides what I've just shared here this morning. So how does this all work with spiritual ecology? Right? The author of our book that we're using this month, Llewellyn Von Lee, she said the current environmental movement is driven by fear of doom and disaster. And that can't be the right motivation. That can't be the right motivation, right, for us to have a truly sustainable future. So she said love and reverence, where we started this month. Love and reverence of the earth will automatically itself result in sustainability, in harmony and coherence. Right? So that's where we begin. We always begin within, And we always begin with that premise of oneness. Always, always. So, I implore you to maybe be selective with your news, with the fear-based news, to be selective with your pictures, the movies that play in your mind, and but not keep your head in the sand. As Lori read, not keep your head in the sand. We can't do that either. So I'm going to leave you with this. To ask yourself again, the last 2 weeks I've left you with a question. To ask yourself and imagine within yourself, what does a world that works for everyone look like? Just imagine that. Play with that this week. What does a world that works for everyone look like? What does a healthy planet look like? And how can I now be part of that? The answers are all within. And so it is.